Every month, I receive hundreds of dollars in passive income. And most people would think that sounds really exciting, and it really is. But the more money I get month by month, the more frustrated and sometimes even angry I feel. Why is that? Well, to explain that, let me tell you a little bit about my background and more specifically, how I grew up. I grew up in a single parent household, just me and my mum. And my mum didn't have a lot of contacts here in New Zealand because originally we came over from the UK. I was born over there. My dad's from here in New Zealand. And when I was 10 years old, he wanted me to live in New Zealand. He wanted to grow up in New Zealand, basically. And even though my mum and dad's relationship had long since been strained and they separated when I was very, very young, I was too young to even remember, my mum thought, yeah, that's a good opportunity for me to grow up in a better environment that she thought New Zealand was than the UK. So both of us came over to New Zealand. Not many contacts, no knowledge of the place at all, right? In my case, I'm just 10 years old, so I start school, start making friends, having a good time. For my mum, though, very different story. She had no other contacts, no friends apart from my dad. And like I said, their relationship had already been strained. She was just coming over here for my benefit. For anyone who's watching who's also grown up in a single parent household, you'll be all too familiar with this. Money tends to be tight in this type of household, right? And it was no different for my mum. I watched how hard she worked, and at times there wasn't a lot of money to go around in our household. Now, I don't say this to be all like, boo-hoo, poor me. Everybody's got their own hardships. Everybody's got a difficult story at some point in their life. And actually, I consider my upbringing to be very, very fortunate. I never went without. My mum provided really, really well for me. So I consider myself very, very lucky. But I just wanted to point it out because, yeah, I saw how hard she would work and sometimes money would get really, really tight. So she did it tough and she did a good job. And looking back on those years, I appreciate and understand how hard she worked to earn enough money to provide for me. And fast forward now to many, many years later, where I'm getting several $100s a month into my bank account from passive income. For instance, last month, I made $450 US in passive income. I think about that amount and how hard my mum had to work to make another 450. Well, it's about $700, $800 in New Zealand dollars, that is. How hard she would have had to work to earn that amount of money. And that's a significant amount of money, especially in a single parent household. And that's what makes me frustrated, a little bit angry even. The fact that I'm getting this money for pretty much doing nothing. All I do is just buy pieces of companies that pay a dividend and sit back and wait. And yeah, that's it. And it keeps growing every month as well. It's pretty much been exactly a year now that I started my dividend income portfolio. And in that year, it's gone from starting out earning about 50, 60 bucks a month to just under $300 US a month. And I've got a little bit of money coming in here and there from other sources as well, but the bulk of it's coming from that dividend income portfolio. So if that's what can be achieved in a year, where am I going to be in another year's time, 2 years' time, 5 years from now? What I do in this portfolio is that I have 4 funds set up that pay a high dividend each month. Some cases each week they pay me. And with those dividends each month, I buy more shares of those funds. And yeah, I look back on a year of owning that portfolio now and how it's just compounding month by month, and see the amount of money that back in my childhood to my mum trying to provide for me would have been a really, really useful amount of money. And that makes me a little bit frustrated, sometimes even a little bit angry. But I will say that for the most part, it makes me very happy and very excited as well. And I'm sure my mum would be very happy also knowing that I'm just getting several $100s for just pretty much sitting on my dot doing not much at all, really. And the other thing that makes me a little bit angry, frustrated, whatever you want to call it, is the fact that, like many of us realize, why didn't I do this much sooner? Financial education is just not something we're very, very good at here in my home country of New Zealand. And I see that throughout the so-called West. I had no idea until at some point in my 20s when an older guy I was working with was talking about his investments. I think he was into mutual funds, and I was like, I have no idea what that is. And he explained it to me, and I thought, all right, that sounds pretty cool. But being in my 20s, I was more interested in partying, drinking, etc. It wasn't until years later that I'd built up enough money in savings and I started investing by myself. And then I saw the power of compound investing, and later on investing in high dividend investments as well. So yeah, if only I'd started this, 20, even 30 years earlier. I'm almost 50 now, and I feel like I've got quite a bit of catching up to do, but it's going in a good direction. So who knows, if anybody is watching this who's in their 20s, possibly even younger, for goodness sake, start investing if you can. I'd say it's never been easier to invest. You actually can get started with 10, 20 bucks, probably even less. There are lots of online-based brokerages that just let you invest very, very small amounts regularly. Even that small amount is such a great start. It takes a while for it to feel like it's actually getting anywhere before you start seeing any noticeable results or start earning gains or dividends or growth that is significant enough that you could actually spend it on something. But as I've said earlier, I've taken one portfolio in just on 12 months from earning me $50 to $60 a month to just under $300 a month. So it doesn't take that long. So my advice to all you youngins out there, get started as soon as you can. So anyway, that's what I mean by feeling a little bit frustrated and sometimes a little bit angry by the amount of passive income that I earn each month. That is gradually increasing. It's not to say passive income is a bad thing. It's definitely a very, very good thing. And once we understand how powerful it actually is to be an owner of something rather than just someone who consumes, that's when we can unlock a whole range of options for our future. And in my case, what I'm working towards is the plan on retiring early. My wife and I retiring early, hopefully some point in the next, 3 to 5 years, say. We're not going to be retiring here in New Zealand where we live now. It's just far too expensive. We've made a plan to potentially move to a place like Malaysia or Thailand, somewhere in Southeast Asia where quality of life is high, but cost of living is much, much cheaper. And while the amount of passive income I'm earning at the moment each month certainly isn't enough to retire on right now, I've had a very strong reminder recently, seeing the growth in the portfolio, that it's really not that far off, provided that I stay consistent with my plan. Anyway, that's all I wanted to share. As always, I'm really, really interested to hear your experiences. Let me know in the comments what you think of this. What have your experiences been about investing? When did you learn about investing? When did you get started? Love to hear it. Anyway, thanks for watching.